Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Tech companies worldwide have had an interesting run over the past couple of years. Many of them boomed during the pandemic as our lives moved online. Of course, as lockdowns lifted and borders reopened, much of the heat came out of the tech sector, but the way we work will likely never be the same again. We're fortunate today to be joined by an Australian leader at a global technology company. In an era of tech startups, HP, known for many years as Hewlett-Packard, is one of the true originals, having been founded back in 1939. Dave McQuarrie is the Chief Commercial Officer at HP. He's usually based in the US, but is in Australia for a couple of days. Dave, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Dave, I love the fact that an Australian called Dave has been so successful on Wall Street. That's my starting question. I'm not sure how you answer it.
What's your question?
No, when I knew you were coming on the show and I wanted to call you David, and immediately everyone said, no, call him Dave. Everyone knows him as Dave. And, it's kind of maybe in a commercial role, it's kind of being able to be accessible or something is a great thing. Anyway, I do want to talk about your job as Chief Commercial Officer. What you do. You're accountable for all aspects of sales, go-to-market and revenue and margin generation on a global scale for HP. How do you do that? What's in the job?
Well, firstly, on the Dave, the reason that I'm Dave here in Australia to all of my mates, and I have been since I grew up here. My mum still calls me David, and I know that when I
of course
when I get David in any personal setting, I know I'm in trouble. But the reason I'm Dave at HP is that when I joined the company, there were two other Davids in the team I joined, and it became pretty easy to become Dave, and it's stuck there since then.
Well, it's better than Dave-O, let's be honest.
I get that occasionally.
Right.
So what does the job entail? It's as you described, it's making sure that we serve our customers, serve our partners in a way that allows us to achieve our financial goals and manage all of the ways we go to market. So we go to market through predominantly through our channel partners, and with our channel partners, we have a small direct business for our largest customers who expect that and demand that from their technology vendors. And ensuring that each quarter and each year we deliver for our shareholders the financial results that are possible.
Okay, when you talk about channel partners, just explain that to listeners who aren't familiar with the terminology.
Sure. We sell, as you know, PCs and printers and the solutions and services that go around them. And often, almost all the time in our case, we sell them through and with partners in the technology space. So first, that may include a distributor. There are very large distributors in Australia, the likes of Dicker Data, Ingram Micro, Tech Data Synex, big partners that we sell to and with, who then fulfill through to value-added resellers who are a part of that same channel, who will add services and other offerings around our product and technology, who will then sell that and serve that to end customers from the smallest businesses through to the largest corporations and government.
Okay. Now, HP, or Hewlett-Packard as it was known, is an incredible brand. Surely that must help you along the way, having a brand. I mean, being a tech company that started in 1939, you're probably the grandfather of tech companies or one of the few grandparents of tech companies. But that brand's been an amazing thing.
It has. And as you rightly point out, we go all the way back to being born just before the Second World War and having survived and thrived and evolved over those decades. We've seen a lot and we've been involved in a lot. The most recent iteration, if you like, of the company is post the split about 8 years ago, where the part of the company that I'm in, PCs, printers and the solutions around them, split off from the services and networking, storage, high-end enterprise infrastructure. And yes, we do benefit from long, strong relationships with customers who've come to know us through all of their time interacting with technology and with that channel community that I described, who've relied on HP and around the world. We are a 56 or so thousand person strong company, but the partner community, the organizations that we work with to serve our customers, is 10 times that large. And so we have a big impact and we feel a big responsibility to maintain both the legacy and the contribution that the company has established over those decades.
Okay, now when COVID-19 hit, HP was under offer, about $35 billion US offer. It was then abandoned as the pandemic worsened. It was very early 2020. The world changed at that point. But in hindsight, that was largely seen as a win for HP. Can you just explain why all the media says that and what's evolved for HP?
Yeah, at that time in our history, we maintained, and I think history has proven accurate, that the value of the company was far higher. We were able to grow our business in the pandemic. During the pandemic, it became clear that the PC and the printer was essential. People went from working in offices, learning in schools, to doing all of those things from home, and the need for good technology that would enable them to do that became screamingly obvious, and we were able to support customers all around the world with that technology. So what was clear to us, both during the pandemic and post-pandemic, is that what we offer is something that is not just an optional accessory, but a critical dependency, a critical tool for learning and working anywhere in the world. And we think that there's much more growth in our business and in those spaces as we continue to serve those products and services to customers, and as we continue to evolve in the direction of things that are subscriptions, recurring offerings, contractual services that we provide to customers as this technology continues to prove itself essential. So we see and continue to see that the company is best placed the way we are as a public company, serving all of those customers and growing for those customers and with those customers and partners. And like you said, and as we saw, that proved very true during the pandemic, and we're very happy with how things sit today.
Stay with me, Dave. We'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to Dave McQuarrie, Chief Commercial Officer at HP. Okay, now I appreciate you have results coming out fairly soon, so I'm not asking you about anything around the results. But if you look at other companies who benefited during the pandemic, they've really struggled since the pandemic. Some of the very big tech companies, and we're talking about cutting capital expenditure, reducing costs, etc. It must be a more challenging period, though, for companies like HP who benefited because of all those things you said, but just going forward in the next couple of years, going back to business as usual.
Well, there are certainly pockets of the business where the growth into and during the pandemic has fallen away. But overall, the markets that we serve are larger than they were before the pandemic. The demand for this type of product is higher in value and what people use this for. I mean, what we used to use PCs for, particularly, and what we now use them for, has changed dramatically. And so the need for them, the number of people who use them, what they use them for, it's gone up, and we don't think it's going to go back. The spike, if you like, of the pandemic was as people acquired more of this technology, but the ongoing need for it, the ongoing refresh of it will continue. And more importantly, perhaps, are both the pockets of opportunity within the overall market, pockets like gaming, big growth market, we'll have lots of you, I'm sure you have lots of gamer listeners who'll tell you and me why having the best gear, making sure they're upgrading it as often as they possibly can and need to stay current, and spending more time on their device and using it for much more demanding activities means these are markets that will continue to grow. And as I said, there's also this belief we have that we will see in our industry, as in many others, a continued move towards a subscription or a contractual motion for the way people acquire this technology. It's happened in many other industries that we're all intimately familiar with, and we are seeing it already. For example, Instant Ink is an offering in our print business where you buy a printer and then you pay, rather than buy the cartridge, you pay by the page, and you pay on a recurring monthly amount that you can move up or down depending on your needs. We see that continuing to expand, and we see that continuing to grow into the PC area as well. So even though the market has experienced a contraction and there are pockets of lower market size than we had during the pandemic, the market is structurally larger and the opportunities within it are there for us to go after.
I just want to focus on Instant Ink for a moment. I mean, I know our business, we subscribe. And so, when the printer's running out of ink, well, this is my understanding at least, it basically arrives in the mail. We get a new cartridge. So it just removes that pain of running out of ink and then, finding yourself 4 days later still out of ink and trying to get somewhere to buy it. That sort of service model, is that because you're a goods company, but that service model is something you'll push more and more into?
We should put you on the payroll, Sean. That was a very very clear description of the value and the value proposition of Instant Ink. The printer will tell us when it's getting close to running out of ink if your usage patterns change. Otherwise, yes, indeed, just as your ink runs low in the cartridge, we'll send you a new one, and you always have one there ready to go for when that moment occurs. And yes is the answer to your question. We will continue to expand upon the offering. We will continue to make it available to more customers, both more customers around the world and more of the customers of different products that we sell. Because again, that convenience that you're describing, that motion that we are all used to buying and using products on, has proven itself. And so we think, yes, we ought to, and we are in the process of continuing to grow that motion. And we do it through and with many of our channel partners around the world. So this is not something where it changes the company strategy of how we get products to customers. It's just an acknowledgement that the way customers buy is evolving.
It's also reduced a lot of swearing in our office too, Dave. Just keep that in mind.
I'm delighted to hear that.
I'm talking to Dave McQuarrie, Chief Commercial Officer of HP. Where does Australia fit into the tech space globally? I mean, we've got a couple of really standout performers. Atlassian's one, Canva's another. And then we have individuals like yourself who have done incredibly well in the world's biggest market. But then how do we play? Where do we rank?
Well, you can look at it just by the numbers, and Australia ranks, Australia punches a little bit above its weight in just the size of our market or its, the relative spend on technology. But where we shine is the culture and the way that people think and operate. Australia is a country, I think, of lateral thinkers. It's a skill I practice and continue to work on every day. And I think Australians are adaptable. We live in a part of the world where we are both a very large country, but we're in a very large, growing, prosperous and diverse, complicated region. And I love that about, the place we hold in both our region and the world. And I also think the openness Australians tend to generally have to finding new ways to do things, the resilience Australians have demonstrated over the decades, works well, serves us well, and serves companies well in industry. And there is a love for travel and for getting out and getting around the world, which many Australians, including me, have applied and companies find useful. So I've encountered many successful Australians around our business and around our industry and in different parts of the world. And I think that all of those qualities allow us to punch significantly above our weight.
I have to ask you, I once interviewed the Chief Marketing Officer from Kellogg. This was quite a few years ago, and he actually went to university in Bathurst. He was an Australian guy. And he said when he first got to the US, he was too open and too blunt. And he said it was an interesting, just for 6 months or so, he just had to learn diplomacy. And I mean, he didn't put it that way. I'm putting words in his mouth here. But he just sort of said his natural manner, his CEO just said, hey, just remember when you're dealing in this country, the US in this instance, it's a bit of a different take on it. And, obviously he learned and he was very successful. Do you find that openness and that sometimes you just have to catch yourself?
I do. And I mean, I've been living abroad for 20 years and I've lived in Singapore a couple of times, Denmark, Norway, France. You get to practice that everywhere you are. And so, yes, I would say that's true in every country that you go to a greater or a lesser extent. And in the US, there are parts of the US, places in the US, where you'll find them very much like your open Aussie, and there are parts where they're a little bit more reserved, and that cultural sensitivity is a critical thing. And I think Australians are quite good at it, and it sounds like the gentleman you're describing was able to adapt quickly and
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so yes is the answer, and it's something which I think we all get a chance to practice, and Australians no different.
Final question on philanthropy and the role big organisations like HP have to play. Now, I have a vested interest here. In the middle of COVID, my partner runs a medium-sized charity and they really needed help, and HP came to the party and provided them with a lot of hardware which allowed them incredible efficiencies. And she's the CEO of the group. And when I said I was talking to you today, she cannot speak highly enough of the fact that HP came to the party at that point. How important is it for a big organisation like HP to be part of the community, to have a philanthropic side?
It goes all the way back to the founders. It's something which, I didn't mention this earlier, but my dad used to work for HP and he worked here in Australia for HP for 13 years. I grew up around the HP way, hearing stories from him about Bill and Dave and the way the company felt its role in the community was much further than just serving it products and services. And so we have been since our earliest days of that view, and I'm delighted to hear that we did the right thing with your partner's charity, and it's something that we take very seriously everywhere. So not just philanthropy, but the sustainability, which you could argue is an application of that same principle to the planet. and its inhabitants. Equally important, we've set aggressive goals. We're getting after them. We think we've got the right level of ambition in them. Extremely important. It runs through everything we do and everyone in the company.
Dave, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
My pleasure. Thanks for the time.
That was Dave McQuarrie, Chief Commercial Officer at HP. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.